2 summers ago, my worries about me and Belgium reached a certain peak. It was a result of a few dramatic events that changed the way I see the arts and the world. It was after the welfare country I belonged to for so long, where I became an artist and a person, changed rapidly its ideology. And art found itself perceived as an industry from one side and as a social parasite on the other. And it was after I realized that in my art practice, I involve only minority groups most of the time and forget to speak to the rest of society. So I thought, where can I meet these local people of my country? How can I get to know them and let them know me? And become more familiar and discuss how we see our country. I chose Kortrijk. From my previous vision that was influenced by walking from the station of Kortrijk to Buda, which is an art center for international and local artists, Kortrijk seemed to me a place where extreme, classy, conservative Flemish people live. And for my opinion, these were the people that, as a result of economical pressure and national closure, will despise my art if I don't let them taste some of it. And Buda, which is on an island, seemed to be the best place to start to dig from. So, to get to know these Kortrijkians better, I decided to offer myself as a guest in people's home for one evening and a night during a period of 3 weeks. As a guest, I brought a present. I hosted my hosts in an artistic soirée in their home about the notions of hospitality. My hosts could choose between 3 soirée presents. The first one was the dinner play. It was the most popular. It was 10 times I did it. During a dinner that I cooked in their home, we improvised and played an interactive role game about positions of hosts and guests. The second one was the lecture about the kibbutz, was the second popular, 6 times. And I told them about my experience being a kibbutz, ex-kibbutz member, and then we elaborate about the position of the other within a communal space. The third one was not popular at all, and I only did it once with a friend that I forced. And it was a movement soirée, and it was about the gestures of everyday life and how we construct our intimate spaces. So, to be able to construct this list of classy hosts, I asked Buddha to look for people who are not the usual theater art crowds, members. Because I wanted to discuss with people who are very different than me on how we live together here in Belgium. And it was a really difficult task. So I thought, why not to try and go to the shopping mall, the shopping center of Kortrijk, which called K, by the way, and to try my luck there. So during a whole afternoon, me and Hannah from Buda, we talked to many lovely couples and told them about the project. And some, of course, refused immediately, but others promised enthusiastically they will call us, but only one couple did, and they were from Dendermonde. So I started from with half of the amount of hosts, but as I visited my hosts, the list got bigger and bigger because they told their friends and friends of friends, and also I was in the local newspaper, and because one of the hosts arranged it, and that also brought some people to open their door to me. And as I visited this list of hosts, I realized they are not at all these conservative prototypes I imagined them to be, but really open, lovely, welcoming people. And I thought, will the conservative will invite me anyhow, or was I just a victim of this preconception? I even went to Dendermonde, And I tried, maybe this couple was this prototype. But when I arrived again, I had this warm welcoming, and then when the boyfriend of their daughter arrived, and I realized he's African, yeah, they were also open-minded. So, where are the conservatives? And still, by traveling from space to space, I discovered so many variations of lifestyles and characteristics. Slowly, I unveiled for myself a complexity of an identity that belonged to some of my country fellow men, that at the same time indicates the general complexity of defining belonging and ownership. I also realized it is impossible to divide society to left and right, and that mostly we are swinging between beliefs, fears, and the need to be reassured and loved. Once, in a soirée, I discussed with my host about the coming elections. My host was doubting between voting P-21, left, and NVA, right. I was totally shocked and emotionally accused him of being schizophrenic and gave a whole lecture about the NVA policy and minority groups. In the end, he told me that he was just joking and I'm full of cliches. The next evening, in another home, in another soirée, another host told me that he is seriously doubting between voting NVA or P-21. I did not believe him, but my host insisted that we need a change no matter what. And those doubts are there between clear left and clear right. And I thought, how much we are looking at the moment, joking or not, for a defined proposition, a certain logic in the state of multiple beliefs. I realized that this is also the case of many open-minded leftists that believed in socialism and its values and now struggle with the border of tolerance concerning identity and economy in a post-colonial society of cultural differences and multicultural social habits. If we believe in equal social justice for all, then define all. True or not, I gave my host again a big lecture about the danger of voting NVA. Someone said I was doing door-to-door politics, but for me it was an experience of love. It was amazing how fast I entered into these private, physical, mental spaces of my hosts. Every time in the beginning, there were some polite exchange of looks, gestures, and hesitating words. After a while, as I entered, I knew, in few hours, I will see you totally different. We will relate to each other and bond in the strangest way. And when I will go out of here, I will feel like I know you, and now again I have to say goodbye. And in between coming and going, my generous host gave me each time a great place where I could rest at night. After we said goodnight, I entered my short-term bed and made an interview with myself about the evening. This is my first hosting experience. It was very nice. A very nice evening. Had a very nice evening again. Amazing evening again. It was very interesting. It went very far, very deep. This was a very interesting evening again. I'm sleeping in the older son bed. That's my bed. It went crazy. It was like a piece of Alain Platel. It's a woman and her daughter. And this is the bed of the daughter. They're sleeping together. They're giving me their bed. She gave me her bedroom. This is unbelievable. It's so hard to accept the generosity of people because somehow I feel like I'm responsible for this whole thing and suddenly I have to be their guest again. This is supposed to be my bed. They have to share a room and she has to wake up at 6:30 in the morning. I have a room on my own. I feel like a queen. I had a fascinating evening, I have to say. Act for two.
It went quite vivid and far. He totally collaborated with me.
Yeah, people are funny when they're not themselves.
I'm sleeping in his daughter room with this all over these young boys. One Direction. Another luxury bed. I love those rooms here in Kortrijk. People are so free and creative. They made food for me without any gluten, and tomorrow morning we're gonna have also gluten-free dinner. Flanders is cool. People are so nice. Why? It's problems. I'm going to sleep in the kid room. I'm in the daughter room. So many parents I had last time. I feel loved by everybody. I'm tired, but somehow it's exciting. I could go on.
This was not an upper class bourgeois family.
I'm very tired.
This was just a human mess.
This is my sixth bed this week. It's funny to lose, I lose sense of orientation. Like when I wake up at the night, I don't know anymore where is the light and what size is the room really, and I don't know anymore. What am I doing? We're gonna change the world like that. I will not talk a lot because I'm very tired. I don't know why is it so tiring. It's always amazing that people really play this personage, that they collaborate with my crazy ideas. It's amazing to be part of a group for 1 second, for one evening, and then flipped, you're back on the street again.
Day after day, I came with my luggage, entered into people's life. They surrounded me with their nest of curiosity. Then slowly we performed for one another, unraveling thoughts and beliefs. After a few weeks of entering almost every day another space, I started to feel like I had no more ground, like I was falling a little out of definition, losing some of my body. And I thought of all these people that fled their home, lost their habitual surroundings. How easy it is then to lose the possibility to embody an I that claims territorial recognition. After many visits, I started to feel a new kind of loneliness entering. There was nothing stable in order to define the horizons of the self, myself. In the end of the 3 weeks, there was a festival in Buda. Suddenly, a group of familiar artists from Brussels arrived. Even though these were not people I see daily in Brussels, I felt immediately among them a certain sense of territory, an energy of belonging. I became a natural part of their gestures, expressions, and bodies sharing space. I usually ask my host to do a selfie photo with me after each soirée. Someone once asked if a selfie of a group is still a selfie, since the self is singular. So I decided to relate here to my hosts as one big self, with many varieties and angles, to be able to explain my experience as a guest in Kortrijk. To my hosts, I arrive at your threshold. You wait for me with a big smile, politely and slightly bewildered, accompany me in. I love our gentle searches for the favor of the other within the hospitality act. You eager to do something for me and me for you. In this realm of politeness, the moment moves by, you decide, I will follow, from both sides. The universal terrain for the silence agreement for generosity enable us to slowly open up to one another and negotiate our differences in a tender respect. If I cook in your house, you guide me to your kitchen. Mostly, you explain me how hard it was to find all these ingredients I asked for because you are not at all vegetarian. And what is quinoa anyhow? You tell me you had to go to 7 different shops to complete this exotic list of elements. On one of my last visits, you tell me that you looked for quinoa all over Kortrijk and it was impossible to find. I feel it is a little success to promote quinoa in Kortrijk and to bring you into unknown territory of food products. Sometimes you ask me if the food I make is from my ex-country, Israel. You even put Oriental music to accompany my cooking. But I have to disappoint you time after time and admit that this is a fusion vegetarian kitchen with some Oriental touch, and that actually I'm not the best cook there is, and I cook in every home the same meal. And yes, I ate many times the same meal during these weeks, but strangely enough, it always tasted different. When I give a lecture about the kibbutz in your home, you cook for me, and I'm so happy to experience another sort of food. Lecture or dinner play, slowly I occupy your living room and become the host of that space for few hours. I guide the construction of relations and set a score of rules for exchange. And I know that when the soirée will be finished, I will slide back to my guest outfit, the one that temporarily exists in a reality that she doesn't own. During the dinner play, we create roles for ourselves through improvisation tasks I give you on card. You surprise me how fast you transform into all kinds of figures and how with fantasy you compose relations and stories. The role of the dinner play are hosts, guests, and unexpected guests. You're in a restaurant, you are expecting the person that you didn't see for some time, coming from a faraway country to enter any minute.
Hey, toch maar
Hey.
Did you find everything well?
Yes,
because
yes.
this is a lonely island.
Yeah,
Did you come by boat or?
I had a GPS with me, so I...
With the boat?
Yeah. You can really invent like where you live, what is your profession, what is your age.
Okay.
Benny! Hello, Benny!
Okay.
Cheers!
Cheers, Santé. So, Mary.
But are you hungry? Everyone take a card and we continue these relations, but in these cards there are certain tasks. We try to incorporate those tasks in our conversation.
Okay.
Okay? To play a bit with the reality of this moment now. Hello. Hello. How are you? Good. Yeah.
You were fat Elke. I didn't recognize you.
And once your task is done, you take another card. Okay. If there's something that is too moeilijk for you to do here, try to find another way. You play an unexpected guest. You become a free spirit, liberated woman, a nomad clown that doesn't want kids and constantly looking for change. I ask myself, is that me? You confront your mother, the host in the play, that she controls everything and that she is stuck in her old-fashioned way of living. We can't control our laughter, but your mother wonders, are those real traumas? You play my husband. Your wife plays with her friend, a lesbian couple. They are the hosts. You constantly kiss my hand, totally enjoy your role. What does your wife think? How far should I play with this hospitality? You are a mother of a big family. You normally work with the law. You play an unexpected guest that is a refugee from a boat. You blame your daughter that became James, the schizophrenic host, that he is a thief. Your daughter boyfriend plays James' wife, that with the help of a blonde wig and 2 tit balloons became Jane, that used to be Johnny. Later, your husband will say, I did not see my wife like this during 25 years of marriage. You are 4 young women. One of you with a strong character plays the host. In the end, you isolate her, ignore her. She tries everything. Turn the light out, music off, leave the room. But you don't move for a long time. Just continue to invent stories. In the end, you thank me to be able to experience this position. The game is hilarious. I don't stop to laugh during 3 weeks. Every evening is again a feast. The characters shift between positions of inclusion and conditions of exclusion. And the light is off. And we challenge each other constantly. In another living room, you want to avoid confrontation. You said that we should stay soft and care for one another, avoid conflict. They do not work. I provoke you by saying that we are so trained to avoid conflicts and remain in our polite comfort zone. One of you tell, in my work, they told me, I am too direct and I have to wear the gloves when I talk to people. The play has highs and lows. The blonde wig transforms you from playing transsexual into a Russian KGB agent, Hillary Clinton, and an old woman named Christine, played by a man that just lost her 5th husband called Tarzan, that fell off the tree like the other 4. And in between the bursts of laughter, there are suddenly moments of profound life stories about dilemmas, misery and longing, about mediocrity and the trap of everyday life that makes you numb, about marriages of 20 years that break down, about working for 35 years in the same place with no possibility for a change, about jealousy, guilt, selfishness, and how you wish to be the Pope for one day and put lesbian priests all over the world. Suddenly, you tell how you grew up in Kortrijk between bourgeois, rich French-speaking girls because your father wanted to play the wealthy game. On another evening, we play just 2 of us. I embody for a while the role of your wife. During the dinner, we play as Benny and Mary and constantly confronting one another, mostly screaming. You say the liberal system is not good, but it's better than other systems. For the moment, there is no alternative. People are greedy and always were greedy. You say you are not proud to work in a bank, and you know it is immoral, but you have a family. You know your children have too much, but that's how it is in society, and you want them to feel like the rest, not excluded. I encounter in more than one soirée your discrepancy between a certain immanence of values of human right consciousness and the acceptance that this is how the world runs. You say that sometimes you feel guilty of having too much, but liking it at the same time. You feel you could live life differently, but now it's too late. And you say that already as a child you felt guilty. You would sleep on one side of your bed and imagine you give the rest of the space to children without home. But you, the host of the game, a lonely castle owner, say, Why to feel guilty? It's not your fault you were born into an ex-colonial society that within a world that has more. We are not responsible for our past, but can we change the present? I feel like I'm having an ongoing discussion for 3 weeks where the frame stays the same, but my comrades for dialogue change and their minds and story varied. The game enables us to relate directly to one another, to confront each other, to touch, to dance together, to accuse, to attract, to become for few hours intimate beyond our differences, and even agree on some questions. 2 times during a game, I changed my clothes with you, and you look so sexy in my small size skirt. After a while, your husband, in the role of an evil, abusive grandmother, caresses your bare legs next to my skirt and kisses your neck next to my shirt. And I have a feeling of entering a forbidden private space. You are always very curious about me and my life. You mostly ask me, where do I come from? How did I come to Belgium? Where do I live in Brussels? Do I have a family? Where is my family? Do I visit Israel? How old I am? Why am I doing this project? What is my real profession? What am I going to do with this? You ask me so many questions about my past in the kibbutz, even before I start the lecture in your house. And I realize that the present is a very different, intimate place than the past. I unfold my family story and the kibbutz for you, accompanied by pictures and small videos. I tell you about all the paradoxes that were part of our lives as a community, about the shared space that had to be open and tolerant, but had many borders and internal problematics, and how you could find yourself very excluded within this communal space. You act with me the Kibbutz General Assembly. We have to decide if to accept or not my Palestinian boyfriend into the community. We use then this story as a magnifying glass, an uncanny mirror to observe and reenact our actuality here in Belgium. Once, after my lecture in your home, you bring me to a lonely church somewhere out of Kortrijk, where you tell about your trip to Senegal. You tell me you lived 17 years in Burkina Faso. You apologized that you had to have servants. That was the norm, and you had to adapt to that lifestyle. You say that you feel guilty to have so much space, and how we don't dare to get rid of all these walls that belong to our framed spaces of hospitality. In Senegal, it is difficult for you to become a tourist, a guest in their land, and witness the reduction of daily habits into the simplicity of poverty. You were told not to convince them to come here because here it's tough reality for them. But can we afford those immigrants? Do we want to afford them? And as my Palestinian friend, is it better to help them in their country, to be a helpful guest, rather than a liberal host? Take the responsibility to the misery of the others. But who needs who? Who can support who? The kibbutz, the church, and the stories from Senegal became landmarks in our conversation over different types of communities, somewhat disappearing or struggling to exist within the modern secular economized society. You tell me how everyone turned frantic when suddenly in your Flemish street a Moroccan family rented an apartment, and how they put the prices up for an entry to a park to exclude families with strange habits, and how people blur their houses on Google Maps, not to be found by the others. The word racism fly in the air sounds so determined. You ask your friend, Will you rent your house when you go on vacation to a Turkish family? When your friend answers, they have different traditions and habits and I want to keep my house as I like it, I think, on one hand, equality in the kibbutz failed partly because the need to exercise our divergence and individuality. On the other hand, we are so reluctant in accepting that which is not similar to us within our territory. During my lecture, you mentioned that the kibbutz structure reminds you of prisons, and you wonder if the prisons are the last socialistic structure there is in society. Then, as in the kibbutz, the hierarchy in the prisons are constructed from within. The strongest, the most frightening one rules. Who become the owner of a territory? In prisons, those are the killers that everyone respects. In the kibbutz, it was the sons of the first pioneers that had the right of birth. Within ownership, there is an element of fear. As a guest in this project, my voice is very present when I'm in my artistic territory. But in the minutes I become just the guest, my demands, my self-declaration, and my needs decline immediately. You ask me, why the Jews always had the same intellectual professions in diaspora? I say, because as constant immigrants, they chose professions that were not bound to territory. We contemplate over the complexity of territoriality and territorial habits, and after few weeks without a home, I feel I lose slightly the territory of my voice, saying, here I am. I don't transform to be you, my host, but my familiar comfort zone grows smaller, and as a result, I enter a certain state of ghosthood. Like a ghost, I walk between hidden spaces of being myself, in between times of other systems. My hosts become my community, and as a ghost, I am in a state of adaptation, asking myself, is that what I think? Is that or this really necessary for my well-being? I'm struggling with my voice. It is not as firm and solid as before. It is more suggestive, trying to find solutions in between unfamiliar formations. I sit with you at the breakfast table. The window is open. I am cold, but I think adapt. Your girlfriend enters and naturally goes and closes the window. I see you are slightly irritated by that movement, but love is about territory, I hope. I think of the Flemish, that as the Jews were time after time occupied and had to adapt constantly to cultural shifts, now they have the opportunity to announce an identity. Even if it is a fabricated one, maybe finally they can achieve a position of inclusion in that mental matter of the survival of the I. But why is the I really so essential? Finally, I arrived in the deepest Platteland, the last area before France. You intentionally speak Dutch to me. You tell, we are at the border, but this is a Flemish area. During the evening, I force you to speak French because of my limited Dutch vocabulary. It is difficult in the beginning, but then the languages melt into one another, swept by the emotion that our subject of discussion evoke. You are 3 generations, you, your mother, and a grandchild. You tell about your affiliations with Holland. You feel at home there. Belgium is a construction. The Wallonian have another mentality, they belong to the south. Like the French, they are coquette, and they think they know better, and they should not decide for us. But me and the grandchild doubt these cultural similarities with Holland. and I slowly get confused with the different aspects I collect about this identity. You say that you were for many years inferior, but by who? In Kortrijk, I discover that the Flemish upper class that made their fortune during the Industrial Revolution actually adopted French mannerism and identified with the king and Belgium. So did they become the oppressive one? So I guess the Flemish identity was developed as a result of clashes between rich and poor, and it is against the king and the old colonialism. So it's actually a social struggle that became an identity that is now symbolized by language, and want to exclude as well the Walloons. Is it just because they speak French? Then you tell me that West Flams, the dialect in Kortrijk, was the original language of that region from the Middle Ages, and this dialect had French origins. And I'm even more confused when you tell me that you preferred French and proper Dutch, and this dialect is actually inappropriate. And I wonder if the self is always schizophrenic and cannot recognize its opposite as its own reflection, and constantly looks for an image of a separate other to be able to say, here I am. Even though I was confused between definitions and languages, one thing was common to you all. You gave me the opportunity to feel closeness and exchange with me your worlds in fascinating different ways, and taught me about my own preconceptions and conservative ideas. On the 11th of April, my hosts were invited to come to Buda. Together with Nicolas Galeazzi, my dramaturg of the project, and my friend, we organized a dinner that was served and cooked and served and guided by a group of people living in Kortrijk but coming from other origins. They then interviewed my hosts during the dinner, first about how they perceived me as a guest in their homes, and then they told about how they came to Kortrijk and how they feel as someone come from another origins in Kortrijk, and ask them a certain question about this position. And in the end we played a game of exchange to propose a future encounter. And this is my last film.
Hallelujah. Daddy cool.
Maar die is nu kleertand.
Sorry, I'm not that cheap.
Je bent vlug.
Ja.
I think she's the best.
That's
Okay.
what love is about.
Everything.
Everything.
For everybody.
You eat, you drink,
Equal?
you be with yourself.
There's the host.
Be aware.
Do you have to tell me something?
Kan dan niet komen.
Don't cheat on
You? No, you. Yeah?
Wow.
I don't know.
Can we stop the game? I don't feel well.
You're gonna be
It's a game, look, it's a game.
You are so annoying!
It's really awful.
Everybody, to everybody.
You need a psychology.